Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 61, No Longer a Shinigami. Of course, what kind of nonsense are you talking? Ichigo looked strangely at Kasuke. But what's the use of you knowing now? Kochiki Byakuya shattered your Seketsu and Hakusui, and you are no longer a Shinigami. Kasuke continued, besides, you bled dry for Rukia. Any debt of gratitude has been repaid, right? Why continue fighting? The Transmigrated is such a massive organization. Are you truly prepared to charge in recklessly, even if it means making an enemy of the whole world? Ichigo looked speechlessly at Kasuke, who knew he wouldn't back down but still said these things. Then I'll leave? As he said this, Ichigo made as if to go. Hey, no. Kasuke broke character, hurriedly grabbing Ichigo. If Ichigo really left, how could his play continue? Kasuke said miserably. I was just trying to build up the tragic atmosphere of a youth charging forward into the enemy's lair. Can't you play along a little? Watching this scene, the live stream audience burst out laughing. Ptah, I came over as soon as I heard Ichigo woke up, never expected to see this side of the shopkeeper. Shopkeeper, you're not following the script, are you? Ichigo, get lost. I don't want to act in your play about Ishin and Rukia. After the rare laughter, Kasuke led Ichigo back down to the underground space of the Urahara shop. Standing still, looking at Ichigo, Kasuke said seriously. Rukia has been charged with a first-degree felony by the Central 46 and sentenced to death. The notice came down not long ago. The execution is in 25 days, and now, there are only 23 days left. So, time is tight, and the task is heavy. Fortunately, your injuries have healed. We need to start your Ryuryoko recovery training immediately now. A reminder, this will be very painful. Kasuke said. Can it be more painful than being sliced 1,000 times by Senbonzakura Kageyoshi? Ichigo snorted disdainfully and looked at Kasuke, bring it on. Looking at Ichigo like this, Kasuke once again snapped his fan open, hiding his face behind it. Actually, the earlier joke wasn't entirely a joke. If Ichigo were a hot-blooded idiot, Kasuke wouldn't doubt his determination to overcome all obstacles to save Rukia. The problem was, Ichigo wasn't such a hot-blooded idiot. He was very smart, very rational. But even so, he still wanted to save Rukia regardless of everything. So Kasuke was a bit confused about Ichigo's underlying logic. Could it be for love? Kasuke thought uncertainly, perhaps only this reason could convince him. But Ichigo's feelings for Rukia clearly weren't as deep as Rukia's for him. So, he couldn't figure it out. Probably Kasuke would never imagine the existence of entities like local forces and players in this world. However, since he couldn't figure it out, he stopped trying. Kasuke raised his cane and struck Ichigo heavily with it. Thump! Ichigo's soul, with the chain of fate attached to his chest, was knocked out of his body. Gasp, ha dash. Just like the original Ichigo, after being knocked out, Ichigo immediately felt the weakness of his soul. Yururu. Kasuke looked to the side. There, the cute lowly Yururu, holding protective gear in her skirt, walked out. However, staring at Ichigo, Yururu seemed to hold a grudge for him stealing her water cup earlier. Smiling and nodding at the cute lowly, Ichigo asked, already knowing the answer, what is she here for? Tell me, how are we going to recover my Ryuryoku? Hearing this, Kasuke grinned mischievously again. Well, lesson 1 of Ryuryoku recovery, please survive Yururu's attacks. He really wanted to see the usually proud Ichigo being chased around by Yururu in a humiliating manner. Clatter. Yururu threw a pile of protective gear at Ichigo's feet, stepped back a few steps, and assumed a combat stance. Big brother, be careful. However, contrary to Kisuke and Yururu's expectations, Ichigo just glanced at the protective gear at his feet and disdainfully tossed it aside. Souls instinctively increase their Ryuryoku when in danger. But that's for ordinary souls. A soul like Kurosaki Ichigo's could never lack Ryuryoku. But the current Ichigo wasn't the fool who didn't know how to control his Ryuryoku like the original Ichigo. After becoming a spirit again, he quickly tapped into the Ryuryoku deep within his body. So, the earlier chest tightness and shortness of breath dissipated. Complaining to Kisuke, Ichigo said, "Urahara Kisuke, stop with these tricks. Can't you be more direct?" Chapter 62 Ryuryoku Recovery Training, Kisuke's Surprise. Simultaneously, looking at Ichigo who didn't take her seriously at all, Yururu's eyes narrowed. Even a lowly can feel anger. Boom! Her slender leg stomped the ground. Yururu swung her fist, charging towards Ichigo like a cannonball. But the next moment, both Yururu and Kisuke widened their eyes in surprise. Because, facing Yururu's powerful punch, Ichigo directly reached out his hand. Thud! Flesh palm met glove, producing a dull sound. Under Yururu's monstrous strength, Ichigo retreated half a step. But this punch, he undoubtedly blocked it. Kisuke and Yururu said in astonishment. What's so difficult? I dug out a bit of Ryuryoku from inside. Blocking a punch like this is simple, right? Ichigo said disdainfully. Then he looked at Yururu. Little sister, you're very cute, but if you want to hit people, I recommend dyeing your hair pink. Kisuke was very surprised by Ichigo's speed. Souls instinctively increase their Ryuryoku when facing crisis, but Kurosaki-kun doesn't need a crisis at all. It seems I still underestimated you, Kurosaki-kun. Then, let's move on to the second item. The disguised Benihime slashed downward, severing the chain of fate connecting to the physical body. After severing the chain of fate, even Kisuke's expression turned serious. Severing the chain of fate means you can no longer return to your body. The meaning of the chain of fate goes without saying. Your state has now changed from Shinigami/human to that of a regular soul. Your Shinigami power exists deep within your body. The chain I left can last 72 hours. Please find it before the chain of fate is completely eroded and you turn into a hollow. After saying this, Kisuke looked at Tsukabashi Tessai beside him. Tessai formed hand seals and directly opened a deep pit in the ground. Kurosaki-kun, please. This is where you will stay during these 3 days until the chain of fate is completely eroded. Ichigo walked to the edge of the pit, glanced down, and directly shook his head. Too slow. What do you mean? Kisuke was very confused. I said, I've already slept for 3 days. I don't want to spend another 3 days in this pit. Under the astonished gazes of Kisuke, Tessai, Yururu, Jinta, and even the livestream audience, Ichigo directly reached out and grabbed the chain of fate on his own chest. Grah dash! Roaring, Ichigo began to exert force. Hey, could it be you? Wait, this is too reckless. Realizing what Ichigo intended to do, Kisuke was shocked. Hey, doing this will only turn you into a hollow. As he spoke, Kisuke moved to stop Ichigo. But the next moment, before Kisuke could act, Ichigo tore off the chain of fate on his chest by himself. Clatter! The chain made a crisp sound. The base connected to the chain of fate fell off. A hollow hole appeared on Ichigo's chest. Immediately, from between Ichigo's teeth, as if having drunk too much alcohol with stomach convulsions, white substance uncontrollably surged out, frantically crawling up his face. Hollowification had begun. Bakudo number 99, Kin. Tessai hurriedly added the control he had previously omitted, restraining Ichigo. But by then, Ichigo had already returned to the depths of his inner world. Old man Zangetsu appeared beside Ichigo and said apologetically, Ichigo, sorry. Just now, his power suddenly increased greatly. I couldn't suppress him anymore. Ichigo smiled and shook his head. It's fine. I did that on purpose. I came here this time specifically to tame him. As he spoke, Ichigo reached out to Old Man Zangetsu. Old man, give me the sword. He didn't want to be like the original Ichigo, who had to painfully search for his sword. Upon hearing Ichigo's words, Old Man Zangetsu directly and respectfully handed over the sword. Ichigo gripped Zangetsu, holding it in his hand. Instantly, all the lost Shinigami Ryuryoku returned. And there was a breakthrough. Outside, Tessai, who had just changed Bakudo number 99 to its offensive form, was stunned. Just as the massive iron block in the sky was about to fall, a black Getsuga Tensho shot out. Boom! The Getsuga Tensho directly destroyed Tessai's Bakudo number 99. Captain-level Ryatsu erupted from within Ichigo. A violent whirlwind was stirred up by the terrifying Ryatsu vibrating from Ichigo's body. In the intense wind, Kisuke held onto his hat, his expression management almost failing. What immense Ryatsu! Such powerful Ryatsu can already rival many captains. If we were to assign a level to Kurosaki-kuin's Ryatsu, this is undoubtedly captain level. Hearing Kisuke's words, the livestream audience also couldn't hold back. Chapter 63. Point Gap Comparison. Holy turtle, Ichigo's growth speed is way too fast. There are only 13 captains in the entire Seirei, and Ichigo's Ryatsu was already comparable to theirs? Absurd, absurd. Brothers, have you seen the leaderboard? Ichigo's points alone are 10 times higher than the second place. Monster, monster. The livestream audience didn't know what to say about Ichigo's growth. But they never imagined that even more monstrous things were yet to come. Tessai suddenly noticed something strange. Wait. Shopkeeper, why hasn't the mask on Kurosaki-san's face dissolved yet? What? Looking at the hollow mask still forming on Ichigo's face, Kisuke was dumbfounded. He said incredulously, impossible. Could it be that Kurosaki-kun, who just regained his Shinigami powers, is about to undergo hollowification immediately? Is there really such a monstrous person in this world? Kisuke was utterly shocked by Ichigo. Simultaneously, a playful, sinister voice with a metallic quality came from ahead. Yo, shopkeeper, I can't pretend I didn't hear you talking about me like that. As you can see, I have some business to attend to. I need to teach a disobedient fellow a lesson immediately. So, please watch my body for a while longer. Of course, I'll do my best to keep it from causing trouble outside. After saying this, without waiting for Kisuke's response, Ichigo closed his eyes again. Inner world. Looking at the awakened Ichigo, White waved, Yo, King, finished saying your goodbyes outside? Actually, I don't think goodbyes are necessary. Just have them prepare to welcome me. After all, you are so weak, King, you will inevitably be replaced by me. Ha! Ichigo remained unmoved by White's provocation. Enough talk. Let's fight directly. A provocative smile curled on Ichigo's lips, or are you the type who prefers verbal sparring? Exclamation point. Humph. Completely angered by Ichigo, White let out a cold snort. However, having lost the verbal exchange, he was very displeased. This was another difference between Ichigo and the original Ichigo. No matter how strong-willed the original Ichigo was, he was still just a teenager. Although he had a body naturally suited for combat, he would inevitably feel lost in battle. But Ichigo was different. He was an adult before entering. And his personality was the type that might seem very laid-back normally, but once he got serious, he would become extremely serious and focused. Ichigo had been in a state of complete focus from start to finish. Ichigo never felt lost about fighting, and his desire for power was very direct. This naturally weakened the reason for White's existence. However, talk is talk, banter is banter, they still had to fight. White needed to personally confirm whether this Ichigo, whom Zangetsu had always favored, was truly worthy of his submission. I must say, as a king, you certainly have the presence. But I hope you're not a king who only knows how to talk. Holding an identical massive Zangetsu, gripping the bandages, White began spinning Zangetsu at high speed. Then, when the rotation reached its peak speed, like a hammer throw athlete, White accurately launched Zangetsu straight at Ichigo. But he didn't know. Ichigo had already experienced this attack countless times in simulated battles. Fighting the hollow within one's body would cause the external body to lose control. Ichigo certainly knew that. So, he needed a quick resolution. Staring straight at the flying Zangetsu, Ichigo slightly tilted his head to dodge as the massive blade flew towards his face, then suddenly moved his hand. Slap! Under White's astonished gaze, Ichigo's palm scraped against the hilt of Zangetsu, producing a sharp sound. But White's Zangetsu was caught by Ichigo with his left hand. Also grabbing Zangetsu's bandages, Ichigo began channeling Ryuryoku and spun it. Using the same technique, Ichigo flung Zangetsu back. TCH, not bad, King. Catching Zangetsu in the same way, White grinned ferociously. Unfortunately, the battles you've experienced, I've also experienced. What you know equals what I know. Such a pity, King, to have finally gotten a new move and not used it to gain an advantage. Huh, is that so? Ichigo smiled faintly. Chapter 64. Still that familiar feeling. Immediately after, Ichigo said calmly. But if I were you, I would absolutely not catch Zangetsu so recklessly. What do you mean? A sense of foreboding suddenly arose in White's heart. He looked at the Zangetsu in his hand. It was all Ichigo's power. During the brief period of control, White's Zangetsu was naturally also under his control. Thus, Ichigo had wrapped a Getsuga Tensho around Zangetsu. And now, when White's Zangetsu returned to his control, this Getsuga Tensho also went out of control. Boom! The blue Getsuga Tensho exploded at White's right hand. A violent explosion engulfed White. Damn it! Clutching his right hand, White jumped out of the explosion. But by then, Ichigo had already used Shuinpa to get near him. Squelch! The sound of a blade piercing flesh echoed. Looking at the blade deeply embedded in his chest and abdomen, which was gradually beginning to stain his body black, White's expression was stifled. Damn it, I don't accept this. Using such petty tricks and schemes, what kind of hero is that? Without even clashing blades once, he was stabbed by Ichigo. White was furious. But facing him, hearing White say he didn't accept it, and under White's incredulous expression, Ichigo really pulled the blade out. Heh, if you don't accept it, then we'll go again. I'll keep you company today. Simultaneously, after Ichigo withdrew the blade. Outside, his body, which had already begun hollowing, suddenly stopped moving under the solemn gazes of Kisuke and Tessai. What's happening? Kisuke, who saw Ichigo woke up, looked puzzled. Ichigo didn't answer, leaving only a wait for me before returning to his inner world. Because after killing White once, Ichigo had initially obtained his power. The next step was gradual subjugation. Having watched Ichigo's actions from start to finish, White was also furious. I see. You bastard, killing me once was just for this? Bastard! White raised his blade and used Shuinpa. With a speed Ichigo could hardly match, he instantly appeared before Ichigo and delivered an explosive slash. The powerful heavy slash cut through the air. The sharp blade wind even made one's skin sting, daring not to meet it head-on. But Ichigo intended to do the opposite. He had experienced White's slash before. It looked grand and powerful, but it was actually a mix of feint and real. If you dodged the frontal explosive slash, a Getsuga Tensho seamlessly chained from within the slash would immediately follow. Black Getsuga Tensho was stronger than Ichigo's, so fighting like this was very disadvantageous. The optimal choice was Getsuga Tensho Wrap. Swinging his sword from below upwards with both hands, the two Zangetsu blades collided violently. Simultaneously, when the slash was halfway through, the Getsuga Tensho pre-attached to the blade edge exploded. Boom! The two colliding Zangetsu blades were flung far apart. However, compared to White's Zangetsu, Ichigo's Zangetsu was flung back a much smaller distance. Taking advantage of the smaller recoil and easier control of Zangetsu, Ichigo recovered his stance faster than White and also exerted force sooner. Thus, squelch. Familiar position, familiar recipe, familiar sound effect, familiar blade. It's back, everything is back, still that familiar feeling. Gra! Looking at Zangetsu, once again impaled right in his chest, White couldn't hold it in. No, no. Where did you learn this combat technique? Why don't I know about it? White said miserably. He wondered if Ichigo had found another lover outside. By now, he had recalled the previous exchange. He used a heavy overhead slash, wanting to win with power. Then Ichigo swung his sword from below upwards, seemingly intending a head-on clash. But the moment before the two blades were about to collide, Ichigo seized the opportunity first and detonated the Getsuga Tensho on his own blade. The launched Getsuga Tensho also prematurely detonated the one on White's blade, causing a conflict. But one Getsuga Tensho was outside the blade, the other was on the blade. The violent vibration made White unable to control the Zangetsu in his hand, but Ichigo could freely maneuver his Zangetsu. So he met the sharp edge of White's Zangetsu with the side of his own blade, then diverted its force, resolving White's slash with skillful strength, and gained the initiative in the subsequent engagement. On the other side, smiling at White, Ichigo asked again, "Do you submit?" "Damn it!" Facing Ichigo's question, White gritted his teeth and roared again, "I don't submit." After saying this, White stared intently at Ichigo. He didn't believe Ichigo was willing to continue. Ha! Ichigo saw through White's thoughts and said, "My favorite thing is to say no to people who think they know it all. So, fine. Let's continue." Ichigo once again revealed the expression that White found utterly detestable. Chapter 65 White submits. Next, Zangetsu was pulled out. This time, as if afraid Ichigo would change his mind, White immediately performed several back jumps to create distance the moment the blade was withdrawn. Then, realizing his actions seemed fearful, White said, "We fought close combat just now. Let's fight at range now. How about it, dare you?" Black Getsuga Tensho began gathering on his blade. "What's there to dare? Bring it on," Ichigo said. "You said it yourself. Getsuga Ten." White's skill name shout stopped halfway. Because, opposite him, Ichigo had already used the Quincy Cross to form a spirit bow, knocked a Getsuga Tensho as an arrow, fused with a Heilig file, and drawn the bow. Bastard! We agreed on a ranged duel. How can you use such an ability? Seeing this, White said angrily. Hearing this, Ichigo looked at White as if he were an idiot. "Silly child, why are you the steed and I the king? A king cannot rely on just one person. If a king entrusts his entire life and fortune to one person, then why shouldn't someone else be king? White, remember this, a single dominant force is always what a king fears most. The way of the king is the way of balance. Alright, now let's have a fair sniper duel." Facing White, Ichigo launched the Getsuya. His Getsuga Tensho alone couldn't beat White's Getsuga Tensho. But Getsuga Tensho plus Heilig file was a different story. With each collision, White's Getsuga Tensho was easily shattered by the Getsuya, which then continued unabated towards White. Some time later, looking at the Getsuya embedded in his chest, White's face was flushed, his expression trembling. Intense emotions clashed within him. It was no exaggeration to say White was now on tilt. "I don't submit. Again!" White roared. "Of course. I can fight you here all day," Ichigo said indifferently. After all, in the training space, he really had fought White for a full day. Thus, the fourth clash between the two began. Footwork exchanged, blades collided, both carefully maintaining their offense. Then, during a change in footing, Ichigo once again sent Zangetsu into White's chest. Hirenkyaku. "I don't submit." The fifth time, Ichigo took a slash on the shoulder. But just when White thought he had finally won, a thread from Ransatengai pulled Ichigo's shoulder. Heido number 4, Byakurai. FZZZT. A swift white lightning pierced through the heart. White, I don't submit. Again. Sixth time. Seventh. Eighth. The battle in the consciousness space, requiring one side to completely yield, continued.
11th time. I don't submit. Again.
White shouted loudly.
But this time, he could no longer continue. Old Man Zangetsu appeared before White. Enough. Damn it. You bastard, going to favor him again? Staring at the old man Zangetsu suppressing him, White was furious. Of course not. Zangetsu shook his head and pointed at White's body. Then, White looked down. How could he still deserve the name White? His entire body had already been saturated and turned black by Ichigo's Ryatsu, including his face. When?
White was shocked, looking at the changes on his body.
Every time you got stabbed. Ichigo replied. Alright, you no longer have the strength to continue fighting. We'll continue next time.
Ichigo beckoned with his hand. White's body disintegrated, piece by piece floating towards Ichigo.
TCH, so unsatisfying. White spat. Looking at White like this, Ichigo smiled. What? Want to continue?
Sorry, but not today.
But if you just want to fight, I can keep you company whenever I have time.
Ichigo said gently.
What, really? Hearing his words, White felt a surge of excitement.
He loved fighting and also hated loneliness.
As a power within Ichigo, White kept showing up. Wasn't it also because he wanted Ichigo not to forget him? If Ichigo was willing to fight with him, that would be even better. Of course. Ichigo nodded. A qualified king must know how to reward and punish. Both thunder and rain are the grace of the ruler. And free combat points, why not?
Ichigo added in his heart. Even while fighting White, he knew his external points were increasing.
But White was completely unaware of Ichigo's thoughts. You really are a good king.
In that case, being willing to be your steed doesn't seem so bad.
White said. Perhaps he could never have imagined that battles could be farmed.
White, who lost and was still being sold by Ichigo for points, was extremely happy.
Chapter 66 regarding the choice of teammates. After saying this, White dissipated, strands of black Ryuryoku merging into Ichigo's body.
Nodding to old man Zangetsu nearby, Ichigo left his inner world. Outside, the live stream audience, who had been waiting for a long time and couldn't enter the inner world with him, were still discussing Ichigo.
Hollowification? What did the shopkeeper mean? Can Shinigami actually become hollows? Don't know. More than that, I'm worried about Ichigo. How is he doing now?
But his points are still increasing.
Can he still fight in his inner world? Brothers, I'm waiting in anticipation.
I wonder if Ichigo can master this super awesome hollowification.
Anticipating +1. I've found that when it comes to exploring the game, you gotta look at Ichigo. Other players just can't compare. True. The number one player, no joke. Under everyone's anticipation, Ichigo reappeared. Ha!
Noticing the golden eyes opening beneath Ichigo's mask, Kisuke focused his attention again.
Success or failure? Of course, success.
Ichigo tore off the hollow skin that had grown on his body during the confrontation.
Then, placing his hand on his face, he swept it away.
The cool hollow mask transformed into black rapier and gathered in Ichigo's hand. Ichigo, clad in his Shihakusho, had returned.
Tell me, when are you sending me to the Soul Society? Or what training do I need to do next? Ichigo asked. This?
Hearing Ichigo's question, Kisuke was momentarily stumped.
Ichigo's development had simply far exceeded his expectations. With too many options, he couldn't choose. Because the current Ichigo could either continue developing his hollowification or learn Bankai. After thinking, Kisuke tossed the ball back to Ichigo. What about you? What do you think? That state you were just in is called Shinigami hollowification. Shinigami and hollows are actually two sides of the same coin.
One goes from 0 to 100, the other from 0 to -100. And Shinigami Holofication breaks the boundary at 0, allowing you to possess both Shinigami and Holo powers simultaneously, greatly expanding your effective power range. In this state, you can use Holo abilities like Hiero, Sonido, Siro, but these all require practice. The problem is you've also reached the level where you can learn Bankai. Bankai training carries risks. And you can only choose one of these two for now. Hearing Urahara's words, Ichigo thought for a moment, Bankai. And his reason was, as for that holofication stuff, does it even need learning? Kasuke was once again left speechless by Ichigo. He finally understood how others at the academy felt when facing him back in the day. This problem isn't something you just need hands for. However, Kasuke was a genius of knowledge, while Ichigo was a genius of combat. Indeed. For a genius like Ichigo, combat skills were basically things he was born knowing. Alright, then come learn Bankai tomorrow. Rest for now, Kurosaki-kun. Go see your family. I've been using a portable Jigai and a mod soul to act as Kurosaki Ichigo these past few days. Kasuke advised. Ichigo was really working too hard. And while saying this, Kasuke also thought of a problem. Ichigo was so strong that the teammates he had initially chosen for Ichigo were too weak, unable to keep up. So Kasuke continued, by the way, there's another issue you need to consider carefully. What? Ichigo tilted his head in confusion. That is, regarding teammates. Kurosaki-kun, do you want, or rather, do you need teammates to accompany you when you charge into the Soul Society? Kasuke asked. Teammates. Ichigo pondered seriously. His current strength far exceeded that of the original Ichigo. If the Soul Society was still the same Soul Society, he could certainly bring teammates. Because unless it was the 1,000-year blood war, the people in the Soul Society were quite peaceful and wouldn't kill indiscriminately. The gentlest, tear-jerking Aizen-sama only used some people for experiments. When he truly defected, he couldn't even kill Hinamori Momo in 3 slashes, completely the opposite extreme of the stern Ritter. But now the Soul Society also had players. Players' actions were unpredictable, which posed a problem. Bring them, or not? I'll just ask them. Ichigo returned to his physical body. At this time, Chad and Oraheim were still clearing hollows in Karakura town under Yoruchi's guidance. Using Raikaku, Ichigo quickly found them. Santen Keshin. I reject. Having just slain a hollow with Santen Keshin, Oraheim immediately saw Ichigo and excitedly rushed over and hugged him, her face full of happy concern. Kurosaki-kun, you're awake. Chapter 67 The Choice Regarding the Future. Ah, I'm awake. Ichigo replied. It must be said, a beautiful girl is a man's best harbor. After a series of battles, Oraheim's warm embrace directly restored his spirits. Quietly enjoying the warmth and softness for a few seconds, Ichigo let go of the blushing Oraheim. Kid, you're awake? Looking at Ichigo, Yoruchi curiously walked up and sniffed him. Then, a look of surprise appeared on Yoruchi's cat face. Ha! Wait, you're Ryatsu? You've already recovered your Shinigami powers? Looking at the black cat at his feet, Ichigo also showed just the right amount of surprise. The cat talked? Ha! Quietly appreciating Ichigo's surprise for a moment, Yoruchi jumped onto Ichigo's shoulder and sat down. What, kid, is it strange that I can talk? However, Ichigo was waiting for Yoruchi to say this. Under Yoruchi's strange gaze, Ichigo grabbed the scruff of her neck. Then, decisively flipped her over and spread her legs. What's this? So you're a female cat, why did you sound like an old man? After his inspection, Ichigo placed Yoruchi back on the ground. Yoruchi, having been subjected to Ichigo's series of actions, only now reacted to what he had done. You bastard! Beneath the black cat face, Yoruchi's face was flushed. She pounced forward to claw at Ichigo. Although she liked transforming into a cat and teasing young boys naked, having her legs spread open to determine her gender was an insult even Yoruchi couldn't withstand. What's the big deal? Just checking the gender. You're just a cat, not a person. Barely dealing with Yoruchi's attacks, even if he was hissing and grimacing from the scratches, Ichigo accepted it for the chance to tease Yoruchi like this.
Not long after, everyone settled down after the commotion. Orihime used Soten Kisun to heal Ichigo's injuries.
Only Yoruchi, who had suffered a hidden loss, was extremely frustrated. This was a case of lifting a rock only to drop it on one's own foot. After chatting for a while, Ichigo brought up the matter of going to the Soul Society.
Go! Of course we'll go.
Ichigo, we promised each other we would throw punches for each other.
Did you forget? Besides, Rukia also helped me.
After Ichigo posed the question, Chad was the first to voice his thoughts. Hearing Chad's words, Ichigo was somewhat puzzled. Helped you?
When?
Because people from Earth had bet game coins, the hollow that would have injured Chad was also dealt with by Ichigo.
His interaction with Rukia should have been normal.
When Yuria crushed the hollow bait,
Sato replied.
He recalled, at that time, Rukia was looking for you, and she helped me.
Without her stalling, I wouldn't have been able to awaken this ability. I see. Ichigo understood.
It seemed there was still some inertia to the plot.
Me too. Orihime chimed in. Kachiki-san also helped me settle Tatsuki.
I'm very grateful to her.
Ichigo was surprised, there was such a thing?
Yes.
So, Kachiki-san isn't just your friend, Kurosaki-kun. She's our friend too. Orihime was very firm. And Kurosaki-kun, how could we just watch you enter the unknown Soul Society alone, bleeding somewhere we can't see?
Although my combat strength might not match yours head-on, my Shun Rika will definitely be able to help you.
Alright.
Carefully looking at the determination in Orihime's and Chad's eyes, Ichigo felt moved and couldn't help but feel envious.
It's really nice to have friends like these.
Since they had such hearts, how could Ichigo refuse?
Ichigo made a decision. Good.
Then let's go together. Then he looked at the Yoruchi cat beside him. At this moment, the Yoruchi cat was spitefully kneading Orihime's chest, seemingly wanting to see Ichigo get upset.
But she underestimated Ichigo.
By now, Ichigo had automatically visualized Yoruchi's actual form. Beautiful girls being close would only be pleasing to his eyes, so how could it upset him? Then, Chad's and Inoue's training will still be left to you, Yoruchi-san. Ichigo said in a normal tone.
TCH. Yoruchi jumped down from Orihime's embrace, puffing up with anger. I know. But, saying it's training, there actually aren't many days left to train. Although Ichigo's strength far exceeded the original, weren't his companions the same? Chapter 68 Friends, Kurosaki Isshin's Teachings.
Since Ichigo started training, the task of exterminating hollows had been handled by Orihime, Chad, and the others. The amount of actual combat they had experienced now far exceeded that of the original work. It just couldn't compare to Ichigo, that's all. To be honest, rather than worrying so much, it was better to improve his own strength.
If he could handle everything, the gap with his teammates would naturally be smoothed over by him. Ichigo smiled indifferently. It's fine, just do your best. Then, I'll head back first.
Ichigo said to everyone. Bidding farewell, on the way back, Ichigo thought about how to convince Isshin. Although it was just a formality, he still needed a reason. However, Ichigo didn't expect that when he returned home, Isshin would give him a surprise.
I'm home. Ichigo pushed open the door. The expected gentle welcome back, Onia-chan, from his cute little sister did not come. Waiting for him was Isshin wearing a shihakusho. Question mark.
Ichigo had a question mark over his head. Simultaneously, the bullet comments, which had been marveling at Ichigo's good friendship, also started spamming question marks.
Hey, brothers, am I seeing things, or is the video display wrong? Guy ahead, it must be a video performance error. Otherwise, why do I see Kurosaki Isshin wearing a shihakusho? Is there a possibility, just a possibility, that our livestream isn't wrong, and Kurosaki Isshin really is wearing a shihakusho? Holy turtle, the goofy dad is actually a hidden boss?
So that means, the identity Ichigo chose really isn't simple.
I'm very curious, what exactly is Kurosaki Ishin's identity? What does he want to do?
Everyone was very curious about Ishin and very confused why he would suddenly reveal himself. Similarly, Ichigo felt the same.
Hey, Dad, that outfit of yours is. You figured it out a long time ago, didn't you? Ishin interrupted Ichigo. Ichigo opened his mouth, not knowing what to say.
He hadn't actually figured anything out, it was probably that he hadn't acted well enough usually, and Ishin saw through it.
However, Ichigo's speechlessness was clearly interpreted as confirmation.
Ishin stood up, his face filled with gratification. He walked over and patted Ichigo's shoulder. Alright, you don't need to overthink it.
I'm not blaming you or anything. That you can use your mother's Quincy powers and my Shinigami powers makes me very happy.
That day you slew Grand Fisher, I went to your mother's grave afterwards and drank all night.
Ichigo, I'm proud of you. You are truly my son.
Ishin said proudly. Hearing this, a warm current flowed through Ichigo's heart. This feeling came from both Ichigo and himself.
Being affirmed like this made Ichigo very happy too. He wanted to say something, but Ishin stopped him again.
Ishin continued. Ichigo, regarding the matters about me and your mother, please don't inquire for now.
You can go to the Soul Society. The main reason I revealed my identity this time is for that.
You are very mature, very perceptive, very intelligent.
You take after your mother more than me. But because of that, I worry about you even more.
So, I want to add some weight to your journey to the Soul Society this time. Ishin stated the purpose of his active revelation.
However, hearing Ishin's words, Ichigo's expression was filled with amusement.
He translated Ishin's words as, Kid, you're nothing like the simpletons of our Shiba clan, you're shrewd as hell. The problem is, the Soul Society's waters are deep, with many players making moves against each other.
If you were just a simple pawn, I wouldn't worry about your safety.
But the problem is you're too damn smart. I'm afraid you'll jump off the chessboard and get yourself killed. I must teach you some trump cards. Ichigo found it both funny and exasperating. By now, Ishin had already taken out 2 notebooks. Ishin explained, here are 2 small techniques.
One from your mother, one from me. And I also have a sword technique to teach you.
Sorry, Ichigo.
Your old man's power hasn't fully recovered yet. These are the only things I can teach you right now. It's nothing, it's enough. Ichigo felt overwhelmed by favor.
He opened the 2 notebooks and skimmed through them. What Masaki left for Ichigo was a technique for constructing an ultra-small spirit bow with the palm and firing spirit arrows with one hand, a perfect skill for ambushing. What Ishin gave him was a finger flick technique that could be used for attack, defense, or support, as well as his personal insights into Getsuga Tensho. Both techniques were very practical skills. Ichigo was very satisfied with these 2 things.
Chapter 69 The Real Zangetsu.
Seeing Ichigo's satisfied expression, Ishin smiled.
Come on, let's go outside. I'll teach you another sword technique. This was an extremely fast draw slash called Ajitowari.
Placing his hand on the sword hilt, Ishin said gravely, Ichigo, watch closely.
My Ryuryoku doesn't allow me to demonstrate too many times.
After saying this, the long sword was drawn. The next moment, the sword light was like the moon, deeply imprinted in Ichigo's eyes. This simple and clear, yet seemingly unrivaled slash completely changed everyone's impression of Ishin.
That night, the flashing sword light outside the Kurosaki clinic continued until dawn. Early the next morning, the capable and virtuous Yuzu came out of the kitchen carrying breakfast, food's ready. Looking at Ichigo and Ishin at the table, Yuzu was taken aback. Huh? Dad, Oniai-chan, why do you both have dark circles under your eyes? Didn't sleep well last night? Hee, that's right, I had insomnia. Yuzu, you know how adults always overthink things. Ishin laughed heartily. Yuzu was very confused. Then Oniai-chan, if Dad was overthinking, were you overthinking too?
Ha, Yuzu, adults might overthink, but your brother was probably thinking about your future sister-in-law.
Ishin joked. Eh? The fooled Yuzu let out a cute exclamation. Get lost.
Ichigo gave Ishin a speechless look, making him laugh heartily. Nearby, Karen looked at Ichigo and Ishin, feeling strange.
Huh? Their relationship improved? Why?
Shaking her head, Karen was puzzled, unable to figure it out.
Amidst the noise and chatter, another ordinary day passed for the Kurosaki family.
After a day of rest, carrying the protective charm given by Ishin, Ichigo bid farewell to his family and went to the Urahara shop.
At this time, the countdown to Rukia's execution was 22 days.
Standing in the training ground beneath Urahara's shop, Ichigo thrust Zangetsu into the Tenshintai before him. When Zangetsu was inserted into the Tenshintai suddenly transformed.
Whoosh! A handsome uncle wearing a trench coat and sunglasses abruptly appeared before everyone.
Seeing this handsome uncle, the bullet comments also got excited.
He's here, he's here. Wow, is this Ichigo's Zanpakuto spirit? Damn, such a handsome uncle. He looks really cool.
True. I never expected the shopkeeper to have something like the Tenshintai, allowing someone to learn Bankai in 3 days. Honestly, the shopkeeper is really a treasure, like the old master in novels.
So strong.
Looking at old man Zangetsu, even though he already knew about this, Ichigo still felt some emotion. To manifest the Zanpakuto in physical form, then subdue it through battle. I must say, shopkeeper, you are truly a genius.
Ichigo praised. Ah, you flatter me, Kurosaki-kun. When it comes to genius in combat, I can't compare to you either.
Kisuke smiled gleefully as they exchanged pleasantries.
You men.
Yoruchi, still in cat form, watched this scene and boredly lifted her hind leg to scratch her neck. Then she looked at the fully manifested old man Zangetsu. Well then, the training for this kid's Bankai is up to you.
Of course.
Old man Zangetsu nodded and clapped his hands on the ground.
The next moment, vast Ryuryoko covered the entire area.
On the earthen training ground, countless strangely shaped Zangetsu blades sprouted everywhere.
Old man Zangetsu casually picked up one Zangetsu.
Ichigo, among all these swords covering the ground, only one is the real Zangetsu.
To make me yield, you must find that real Zangetsu and then defeat me. I think this should be very simple for you, right?
Of course. Poking at the Zangetsu blades on the ground, Ichigo casually picked up one that looked good and directly exposed old man Zangetsu's trick. I know, there is no real Zangetsu, or rather, every one of them is Zangetsu.
The real Zangetsu should be the one remaining in my hand.
So, the content of this test should be, use the Zangetsu in my hand to shatter the Zangetsu in your hand.
The Zangetsu that remains is the real one. Right, old man Zangetsu?
Ichigo said. Hearing his words, old man Zangetsu's pupils behind his sunglasses contracted in shock. Then, a flash of gratification passed through his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Not bad, Ichigo.
You are so intelligent. Then I won't say more. Come on.
Swinging the Zangetsu he had randomly picked up, which had a hook at the tip, old man Zangetsu charged towards Ichigo. Similarly wielding a slightly more normally shaped Zangetsu, Ichigo met him.
Chapter 70 The Cool Old Man Zangetsu, Bankai Training.
Seeing this, Yoruchi and Kisuke, who were watching from the side, showed a glimmer of anticipation.
Hey, Kisuke, how long do you think it will take for this kid to complete his Bankai training? Can he surpass you? I think, with his talent, he definitely can.
Kisuke had great faith in Ichigo. However, a surprising scene unfolded in the field. The previously confident Ichigo had the Zangetsu in his hand completely shatter in the very first clash. This forced Ichigo to temporarily pull out a new Zangetsu, then slash again, only for it to shatter again.
Slash again, shatter again.
For a moment, Ichigo was being chased and slashed by Zangetsu, seemingly in constant peril.
Huh? What's going on?
Yoruchi was somewhat surprised.
But Kisuke saw the trick. He's constantly trial and erroring,
trying to grasp Zangetsu's strength at the fastest speed. If I'm not mistaken, Ichigo should adapt after a few more rounds of fighting. Sure enough, just as Kasuke predicted, after Ichigo shattered 7 Zangetsu blades in a row, in the next strike, he completely blocked Old Man Zangetsu's attack.
Old Man Zangetsu, I found the feel.
Ichigo said to Old Man Zangetsu with a smile.
Oh, really? Show me.
Old Man Zangetsu parried Ichigo and swung his blade again.
But during the second collision, crack!
The Zangetsu in Old Man Zangetsu's hand shattered. He picked up another Zangetsu and slashed at Ichigo. The next moment, the Zangetsu in Ichigo's hand also shattered again. Seeing this, Ichigo was startled.
Then he understood.
Picking up another Zangetsu, Ichigo jumped back to guard.
I see.
What I said earlier was correct, but I overlooked one point.
All the Zangetsu here are Zangetsu, but they are only parts of Zangetsu.
Each weapon has its own strengths and weaknesses, unlike Zangetsu, which is hard and flawless. So, not only must I keep the Zangetsu in my hand from breaking, but I must also constantly understand their strengths and weaknesses, making up for what I lack after getting used to Zangetsu's strength.
Man must control the sword, not be controlled by the sword.
Reaching this point, Ichigo finally completely understood the key point of Zangetsu's Bankai training.
Hearing this, Zangetsu nodded in satisfaction. Good.
Picking up a Zangetsu from the ground again, Ichigo charged forward with a slash.
Crack! The blade in Zangetsu's hand completely shattered.
Then, as if the initial situation with Ichigo was reversed, Old Man Zangetsu kept picking up blades only for them to shatter, pick up and shatter, continuously breaking Zangetsu blades. Thus, the Bankai training entered its final stage ahead of schedule. Picking up a Zangetsu blade, Old Man Zangetsu, at the cost of his own Zangetsu breaking, also shattered the Zangetsu in Ichigo's hand.
The blades in both their hands vanished simultaneously.
They then jumped back, creating distance. Old Man Zangetsu casually picked up another Zangetsu. Then his Ryuryoku surged again, and as if splitting into multiple entities, numerous Old Man Zangetsus appeared around Ichigo. The Bankai training assessment had reached its end.
Be careful, I won't hold back.
After this warning, the Old Man Zangetsus charged forward one after another. Now, as long as Ichigo could destroy all the blades in the Zangetsu's hands in one go, he would pass the assessment.
Clang 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 clang.
The sound of shattering swords continued to ring out. The battle in the Urahara shop's underground space reached its most intense point almost from the start.
One day later,
as Ichigo and Old Man Zangetsu's blades collided for the final time.
Crack!
The Zangetsu in Old Man Zangetsu's hand shattered.
But the Zangetsu in Ichigo's hand remained firm and new and pierced into Old Man Zangetsu's abdomen.
Facing Ichigo, Old Man Zangetsu said in satisfaction, "Ichigo, congratulations.
You have completed your Bankai training."
After Old Man Zangetsu finished speaking, poof! A puff of smoke appeared.
The Old Man Zangetsu before Ichigo transformed back into the Tenshintai pierced by the massive Zangetsu blade. Watching this scene, Yaruchi and Kasuke were shocked. Completing Bankai in just one day?
And he completed holification before that.
Era, this is really... Kasuke pressed down his hat brim, not knowing what to say.
An astonishing talent. Yaruchi beside him finished Kasuke's unspoken words. To be honest, even though Kurosaki Ichigo's body was currently being utilized by Ichigo, realizing its greatest potential, this level was still a bit too exaggerated.
Ichigo had been mistaken about one thing. Who said the Hogyoku's effects weren't working?
The Hogyoku's effects had clearly been working all along. Witnessing Ichigo complete Bankai in one day, on top of previously completing holification. Outside, both Dongwa and Shigwa people were completely shocked. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated and taking over Ichigo's body.
Thanks so much for listening.
As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well.
See you in the next one.